You're listening to the Yard of Greatness podcast, episode number 25. Welcome to the Yard of Greatness podcast. My name is June Allen, your sister in service from juneallen.net. On this show, I empower non-white listeners to prioritize their racial wellness and emotional sobriety. The platform is for educational purposes, is based on my experiences, and is shared in good faith. Always consult your doctor, therapist, or licensed mental health professional before applying any of the suggestions given within this platform. The vision is to build a blackalicious life of empowerment so there can be peace. Now on with the show. Hey, greetings family, greetings. I hope you're all well. June Allen here, and really grateful to be in this space again with you all. Thank you for taking the time. Today I'm going to be giving you 10 ways to manage your black pain. This is one of the most important things that you can learn about how to survive under the system of racism, white supremacy, because as you heal and as you get whole and as you begin to understand things, you're going to experience pain. That's just part of the process of growth. That's just part of the process of learning and growing and becoming more racially sober. Pain is going to be part of the process. So it's important for you to be able to begin to learn and to acquire the appropriate tools for you to take care of yourself when pain is present. One of the sayings that they talk about in recovery is, one of the good things about being in recovery or being inside a growth process is that you get your feelings back. You're no longer numb, so you can be able to stand inside the truth of who you are, inside your humanity. One of the bad things about being inside the growth process is that you get your feelings back, because it's hard sometimes and it's painful, but that is part of being human. And as we learn and as you grow and become part of a whole person and rediscover and begin to become more truthful about where you are in your growth journey, you're going to have the tools to be able to manage your situation and take care of yourself and get your needs met. You'll be able to use the pain as a way to be able to understand. You'll be able to understand what's going on for you, and you'll also be able to transform that pain into something positive, because the pain is there to teach you. The pain is there to tell you where your boundaries have been crossed and what's going on. So pain then becomes your friend. It then becomes something it becomes your teacher, becomes your guide. So today I'm really glad that I'm going to be sharing with you 10 tools, 10 ways for you to manage and process your black pain, emotional pain, just the difficulties that are going to come up for you. So let's get started. The first thing that you'll need to do is to create a space to be able to start to build a relationship with that part of yourself, so that you can begin to explore your feelings and understand where you are. Now, what I mean by that is that you have to strategically make a conscious decision to create a space to be able to do this work. And it might mean that you're going to have to underschedule, take some stuff off your plate. The busyness, you're going to have to think about what's going on in terms of work, family commitments. You need to really think about where are you going to make time to be able to do this. There are going to be times doing this work when things are going to become really intense, and there may be times when things are going to be okay. There'll be times when you'll be really happy. But as part of this process, and as long as especially as long as white supremacy is alive and kicking, it's important to make this part of your daily ritual so that you can become more intimate with yourself. Sometimes I'll get up early in the morning to do stuff and to check in with myself, and sometimes I'll do it, you know, after my daughter's gone to bed. It's about, you know, you need you sitting down and thinking really strategically around, you know, what times are going to work for you. But as long as you do it, you know, it doesn't matter. At least in the beginning anyway. You might need to change the space depending on, you know, the level of pain that you're in. Obviously there are going to be times when you're going to need more private time, which is important. But yeah, if you've only got 30 minutes or 15 minutes or whatever it is, just give yourself that commitment in the beginning and then take it from there. The second way to manage your emotional pain is to just get present to your breath. And that might seem, you know, really easy to say, oh yeah, just breathe. But, you know, quite often when you experience a lot of emotional pain, especially if it's something that you've been holding on to for quite a long time, breathing can become shallow, and so it's important to, when you found your quiet space, your quiet time to process this stuff, is just to take some time and to really start to be conscious of your breathing. In my own personal situation, I know that a lot of my emotional pain, because I held it in for so long, it then became physical pain, and so, you know, unfortunately then I just felt like I wanted to disconnect from my body, because it was actually painful to sit in my black skin. And so being able to give myself some time to breathe and to do it really consciously in silence, it gave me the opportunity to reconnect with my body and to tune into where the pain is manifesting in my body, and then take the necessary steps that I need to discharge the pain out of my body. As a side note, I should also let you know as well that you know, I experienced you know, violence as a child, and you know, I also have been in abusive relationships as well as an adult. And so one of the things that I found difficult about getting silent and getting conscious to my breathing is that sometimes it would bring up really painful memories and really difficult aspects of my past that I'd buried. And so I had to be really, really gentle with myself and really, really kind with this practice. You know, it might be that, you know, I can only do 1 minute, or I might only do a couple of minutes depending on where I am. It's important that, you know, if you've been through anything that's really traumatic or any sort of violence or anything like that, and you find that, you know, being silent and slowing down in this practice is very, very difficult for you, then you must stop. And also, it's going to be really important for you to consider getting some external support if you need it, seeing a therapist, seeing somebody that's specialist in trauma. That's really going to help you deal with this in a much more measured way and can hold you through this process. Number 3 is about identifying your feelings. Now, once you identify your feelings around the pain, then this is going to really help you to start understanding what you need. Once you're clear about what you're feeling, whether it's fear or whether it's sadness or whether it's grief or shame or whatever it is, once you've identified what those feelings are, then you can begin to question, you know, what's behind those feelings, and you can begin to sort of join the dots between what you really, really need to do to take care of yourself, and, you know, understand what you need, how you need to take care of yourself in order to make the transition and transform the negative feelings, the negative energy. And when I say negative feelings, negative energy, I don't mean that in the sense that these feelings are bad. They're not bad. They're just part of being human. You know, I just call them negative because obviously it's not nice having to go through those feelings, but, you know, ultimately this is all part of what it means to be human, and it's important to use these feelings as a stepping stone for you to understand who you are, what makes you tick, what your patterns are, and then ultimately use this information that your body, that your psyche is trying to tell you, use it to transform how you feel into something that's positive, that's going to help you learn. Number 4 is about being able to surrender to the emotional pain. And what I mean by that is, there's so many black people that hold in their pain. I mean, under the system of white supremacy, we've actually been taught to hold in our pain because, we're shamed if we have feelings. We're not allowed to. We're told that we have to keep our feelings in because, according to white supremacy, we're not human, and therefore we don't have feelings, and therefore we're not allowed to express them. We're not allowed to do anything which calls out racism. And so quite often we hold a lot of that in. And there's also this silent code that goes on in our community that, we're not allowed to feel anything. And I go into this a lot deeper actually in the I have a free challenge going on at the moment. It's called seven days of revolutionary black self-love, and on day 7 I talk about this silent code in our community, the code where we don't tell, don't trust and don't feel. And this, I believe, is what's been passed down through slavery, through living under the system of racism, that we've somehow absorbed so much of the aggression and abuse and violence from white supremacy that we can't even connect to our own humanity because it's just too painful and it's too overwhelming for us to be able to recognize those things in ourselves and each other. So we become numb. We become numb and we can't surrender to who we really are because there's so much pain that's backed up, that's been passed down through the generations that now we can't surrender to our own humanity. But if we are really going to heal from the impact of racism, if we're really going to heal from the internalized racism within our families, then we have to be willing to surrender to the truth about our vulnerabilities. We have to surrender to the dysfunction. We have to surrender to the pain that we're in our families. And the only way that we're really going to do that is if we find that safe place and that we find a way to surrender and let go to the process of healing. Number 5 is to get one-on-one support. Those of you that are already aware of my work will know how much I talk about therapy and how important having a sponsor and stuff is around healing. One of the key elements of reclaiming your blackness has to involve being truthful, being authentic, and sometimes the pain that we're in, the shame we feel around our behaviours, means that we find it very, very difficult to share our experience with other people because we feel ashamed of what we've done. We feel ashamed of how we've behaved, and so we feel like we can't tell people. But in having a one-on-one support system, I mean, with my therapist in particular, I've been with this particular therapist for about 4 years, and it really has transformed the way that I think about myself, how I feel about other black people, how I feel about black men. My therapist is a man, a black man, and it's been transformative because he's actually challenged all my internalized racist thoughts and feelings that I had about myself and also other black people. My recovery therapist is a black woman, and that is also really, really transformational in the sense that I'm sort of challenged to really think about where my triggers are around other black people. And because of the fear and the pain that I had around being intimate, being emotionally intimate or physically intimate with other black people because of my abusive childhood, I made the conscious choice that I needed to do this one-on-one work with a black therapist and also a black sponsor, because the only way that I'm going to be able to heal from that stuff and work through that emotional pain is to expose myself in a safe way to on those platforms, you know, with having a black sponsor and having a black therapist. I know that I can sit in those sessions and I can say how I feel, and I know that I'm not going to be judged. I know that you know, I'm going to be heard, and that is a really, really important way of practicing black self-love. It's an important way of practicing self-respect. I talked previously about the 7 days of revolutionary black self-love when I was talking about number 4 and surrender. But yeah, if you're interested in you know, being involved with that challenge, it's absolutely free, and you can sign up at 7days.juneallen.net. That's 7days.juneallen.net. I also have a great podcast about how to pick a black therapist. So I'll put that in the show notes as well. So if you're thinking about you know, going to therapy to deal with some of your issues, I can't recommend it highly enough. There's loads of information that I talk about in this previous podcast, so you should get lots and lots of support from there. Number 6 is having group support. Now, group support is really, really great for the identification and also the isolation. You know, it's really easy to want to go and hide from the world when you're in a lot of emotional pain. You think you're the only one that's going through it. You think nobody cares. You think that no one's really going to help you, and you know, you might feel a lot of shame about the fact that you're in so much pain. But when you find a really great support group, you find a group of people that are going through the same thing, and you hear people telling their stories and sharing, then, you know, you can find hope. You can find hope in those places. This is one of the reasons why I found 12-step recovery so powerful, because, you know, I've been in meetings where I've heard people, you know, share stories where you just had no idea that they would be able to come back from the trauma that they've been in, but they're there to tell the tale, and they're there to share their experience, strength and hope with other people. And it's great for newcomers that are going to those meetings, because then they hear other people talking about this stuff, and that is actually what you know, what kept me going back to those meetings, because just hearing other people talk about their challenges and talking about, you know, how they dealt with difficult things, painful things, traumatic things, you know, how to set boundaries, how they deal with, you know, abusive family members, incest, sexual abuse, just extreme violence, just a lot of really, really crazy things that went on in families, and how these people were able to turn their lives around just through working this very, very simple program. If 12-step recovery is something that you'd like to think about and explore a bit more, I also have a previous podcast where I talk about recovery for beginners, is particularly through the black experience. So yeah, there's a lot of information in there, and I will also put that in the show notes for you, so you can listen to that also. If recovery is not your thing, you know, that's totally cool. Everybody has their own way to heal, and you know, you can find a community group, a spiritual group. You know, there's meetup.com where there's loads of niche groups on there. You can use Facebook, you know, but one of the things that I would say is that if you can find a group that is a black only space, then that is really going to help you as well, because I can't tell you how many times I've sat in groups where it's been mixed, and you know, when a black person shares their experience, you know, white people tend to get bent out of shape, you know, about their feelings, and they you know, it triggers them. It triggers white people, and then the conversation becomes less about the black person sharing their experience and, you know, what's going on for them. It then becomes about whether we should or shouldn't be talking about race, and that, you know, it makes white people feel uncomfortable. And, you know, they're used to being in a position of power. That's how white supremacy works. So, you know, you don't want to have to deal with all of that stuff when you're trying to manage your emotional pain. And this is probably one of the negative things about being in recovery, because it is very, I don't know how it is in the States or what of the country you're listening from, but in the UK it's very white middle class. Recovery is very white middle class. And when I first went in the rooms, there wasn't a lot of black people in the rooms. Now there's a lot more black people in the rooms, and I've made it my business to connect with other black people, other people of colour specifically, and to talk to them about racial sobriety, and to have honest conversations about racism in the rooms. And that is how I've managed to work on my racial sobriety, work on dealing with my own issues around race by specifically talking to other black people. As a side note, it is important for me to also say that not every black person that you see is going to be interested in talking about this stuff. I made a point of saying to other people, look, this is where I am. I really want to talk to other black people, other people of colour, specifically about racism in the rooms, racial sobriety. Would you be up for doing that? It's important to respect the other person's boundary. So that's how I got started when I was in recovery. I would just if I got talking to people in the rooms, or I heard somebody that did a share that I really identified with, I would go and chat to them, and I would just say, look, would you be interested in doing some outreach calls? And I really want to explore racism and recovery, and would you be interested in doing the same? And that's how I started those sorts of conversations. And 9 times out of 10 people were like, yeah, definitely, I definitely want a space to be able to talk about this stuff. So it was very powerful, very, very powerful to be able to do that in the early days. But now I have a great sisterhood in recovery, and it's great to be able to have honest conversations, without the kind of white gaze, and just to be able to have those conversations from a place of authenticity and honesty. Number 7 is about journaling. Journaling is probably one of the most powerful ways that you can begin. One of the most common questions that I get with people is, where do I start? I'm so overwhelmed with all of this racism stuff. I'm in a lot of pain, and I don't know where to start. And I always say to people, give yourself 15, 20, 30 minutes a day to check in with yourself, and get a journal and just start writing. Just start writing out your thoughts, write about how you feel about your blackness, try and articulate your feelings, all the stuff that I was saying prior. Just use the journal as a way to start really getting in touch with who you are, and start small and just build it up. And also there's 3 questions that I always tell people to ask themselves if they want some prompts or whatever when they first start journaling is, how do you feel? Number 2, what do you need? And number 3, how can you meet those needs? How do you feel? What do you need? And what do you need to do to meet those needs? And in the beginning, you might not understand how you feel or what you need or whatever. Sometimes you might just feel really, really numb and you don't know, and that's okay. The important thing is just to keep writing, keep journaling, keep saying how you feel, and keep trying to answer those questions, because if you're in a place where you feel numb and you can't answer those questions, if you keep asking them every time you journal, the answers will come to you. The answers will come to you if you keep searching, and then you'll begin to build a relationship with yourself that's intimate and understanding. And then the more you understand yourself, the more you'll be able to take more action on nurturing yourself as well, once you start to answer the questions about what you can do to actually meet the needs that you've discovered about yourself. Number 8 is to get out in nature. I love this one because it's kind of saved me on so many times. There are times where emotional pain it can become really quite overwhelming, and it's important for me not to sugarcoat this, because the whole point of wholeness and racial sobriety and getting well and being authentic is reintegrating your core self with the false self that you've kind of built up over time, that's been a product of other people's expectations, what white supremacy says that you can and can't do. And you have to, during the process of becoming your true self, you have to let go of that old self that was a product of what everybody else wanted you to do, and then you become your true self starts to blossom. And I say those things because as part of that process of becoming your true self, you're gonna have moments where it's painful. It's painful to let go of the old you. There's kind of like a withdrawal process, and there's a grieving process in order for you to let go of that old self and to become your true self. And there have been times where I felt so overwhelmed by that process, where I really felt like I just wanted to isolate. I didn't want to go to meetings. I didn't want to talk to anyone. I didn't want to journal. I didn't want to do any of those things. But the thing that saved me in all of that was to go out in nature, to connect with the air, to connect with the birds, to be around lots of greenery, to just be around trees. There is something quite powerful in terms of energy around just being around lots of trees. For me, I just feel so nourished, and it actually just really helps me to get things into perspective. It's hard for me to articulate it, but there's something about being out in nature that is really, really powerful. And actually it's not really about articulating it. It's just about, when you're out in nature, you're with God, you're with your higher power. So of course I'm going to feel connected. Of course I'm going to feel more nourished by being with my higher power. Sounds very simple, but it's really effective. Don't underestimate the power of being out in nature. And number 9 is focus on what you can change and leave the rest. You're powerless over people that practice white supremacy. You're powerless over, other people's dysfunction. You're powerless over people that are toxic, and you can't control other people. So it's important to focus on where your boundaries are. You can't control other people, but you can control your response to other people. Are there places where you need to set boundaries? Are there people where you need to spend less time with them? Are there conversations that you need to stop having with certain people because it's not good for your emotional well-being? I made a decision some months ago that I would stop having conversations about race with other white people, because it's just not emotionally safe for me. It's not emotionally safe because white people are socialized to be in the dominant position, and they're not doing this work. They're not doing this work because obviously they are part of the majority of white people in the world are involved with white supremacy at some level. And so for me, as a black woman trying to recover from the impact of racism, it doesn't make sense for me at an emotional level to keep putting myself in these situations where white people are in denial about racism. And I'm not going to have these conversations with them and having to keep explaining myself. I see it all the time on social media, black people having to keep explaining themselves over and over and over again, and it's emotionally abusive. It's abusive, and it's not good for our well-being. It's not good for us. It's just not healthy. It's just not healthy. So I made that decision some months ago to set that boundary for myself around other white people, and it's better. I feel better for it. There are also certain family members where I've had to withdraw from because either they're kind of trapped in their own pain, or I just can't relate. I just can't relate to them. It doesn't mean that I'm better than them or anything like that. It just means that I have to focus on being in a circle of people that are going to where I can nourish them and they can nourish me. That I don't go into a whole load of trauma and pain when I'm when I interact with them. I have to be really, really mindful of my own well-being, regardless of whether I'm related to them or not. And I think a lot of people find that difficult, and I understand why people find that difficult. But you know, in terms of you know, focusing on what we can change, this is something that we really have to get honest with ourselves about. There's been some you know, women that I've been sharing with recently who have found it difficult to this one woman in particular, she was talking about, you know, the relationship that she has with her mum, and she was just in so much pain because she desperately wanted, actually there's two people actually that I've been talking to recently that were having the same issue around their mothers, and they just find it really, really difficult, stressful, painful to, you know, have these relationships with their mothers, because their mothers are going through their own, I'm sure they've got their own traumatic issues or whatever, but the daughters just really, really struggle with these relationships, and they've had to make the decision to kind of have less contact, to reduce contact with their mothers, because it just becomes too painful. It just becomes too painful. You know, the journey to wholeness is it's challenging. It's challenging, but this number 9, focusing on what you can change, is a really, really important part of how your emotional pain will be managed. Because if you're always chasing, if you choose to stay in situations which trigger pain, which exasperate your pain, then it's going to be hard for you to get over it. It's going to be hard for you to move through it, because you keep putting yourself in situations that are causing you pain. So this is an act of self-love. This is an act of self-respect. It's not easy, but if you want to, you know, heal, then there are certain decisions that you're going to have to make about your life, about who is in your circle. And number 10, the last one, is to, I love this one, is to ask yourself the question, you know, what would love do? What would love do to take care of you when you're in pain? How would love respond? One of the most amazing things that you can do for yourself in terms of healing is to learn how to practice more kindness to yourself, and to learn how to practice a lot more tenderness towards yourself. Black people have absorbed so much pain over the years through living under the system of white supremacy that we no longer understand how to be kind to ourselves, how to be loving to ourselves, because, you know, so many situations where we end up acting out the aggression, the violence, the pain to other black people, that what has been projected onto us, which has been dumped onto us by white supremacy. So white supremacy dump all of their stuff onto us, their oppression, their hate, all the rest of it. And it's self-hate, by the way. Racism is white self-hate. And then what happens is we absorb all of that, and because we feel powerless to fight back against white supremacy, we end up dumping it on people that look like us, because we've absorbed so much of the negativity that's been dumped onto us by white supremacy. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's really, really important for us now to counteract that by being kind, by being tender with ourselves, and by setting those boundaries around white supremacy that's going to minimize the pain that we experience of living under this system on a daily basis. Are you able to practice kindness? Are you tender with yourself? Are you consciously able to practice tenderness with yourself? What does it look like? Saying that you love yourself and actually taking action on doing these things to love yourself, tangible things to do to love yourself, is very different. It's very, very different conversation. Because I often hear a lot of people saying about, oh, you have to love yourself, you need to do this, you need to do that. But when it comes to actually doing it, you know, there's a lot of you out there that find it hard, myself included. I still find it hard. It's something that I have to practice on at a conscious level every single day, because my default is self-abandonment. My default is to deny my own needs. My default is to people please. That's my default. So I have to consciously keep asking myself, you know, how do I feel? What's going on? Am I okay? Do I need something? How can I nurture myself today? Am I bringing my higher power into my day, into my actions? It's only when I take the time to consciously bring those things into my daily life regularly that I really begin to feel different about myself. And, you know, I really notice it when I don't do it. When I don't consciously make the decision to do these things, like, okay, well, how am I going to take care of myself today? I'm going to do A, B, C, D. Sometimes I'll text it to my friends as well. Sometimes I'll say, today I'm going to, you know, I'm going to have an Epsom salt bath. I'm going to cook a nice meal, and I'm going to go to the park. I'm going to go for a walk in the park. Sometimes actually committing to doing that sort of nurturing, that sort of self-nurturing, is how it gets done. And then the person might text me back and say, did you do it? Sometimes I have, and sometimes I haven't. But even if I do one, it's better than nothing. What would love say to you today about what you need to do to take care of yourself? What would love say about your emotional pain? What would love say about your black pain? What would love say or do about the current state of your relationships? The answer to your pain is actually inside the pain. The pain is there to teach you that you're not looking inward. When you look inward inside the pain, it's gonna tell you what you need. But you've got to be willing to actually be brave enough to go inside and look at what's being said to you. Look at what's being shown. And a lot of the time we get so caught up around even feeling the pain that we don't even want to look at it. We can't listen to what the pain is trying to tell us, because we're overwhelmed by the feelings that the pain is actually bringing up for us. And that's really hard. It's hard to make that transition. But oh my gosh, it's so worth it if you can do it. If you can make that transformation from just being in the pain. There is a place for being in the pain, for experiencing it for what it is. But when you can also observe the pain and come at it from a place of compassion and understand the pain and sort of ask the pain what it's trying to teach you, that's when the pain becomes transformed. So just to recap, the 10 ways to manage your emotional pain or black pain. Number 1, create a safe space to process it. Number 2, become present to your breathing. Number 3, identify your feelings. Number 4, surrender to the truth of the pain. Number 5, get one-on-one support. Number 6, you can get group support. Number 7 is doing some journaling. Number 8 is get out in nature. Number 9, focus on what you can change and leave the rest. And number 10, ask yourself, what would love do? If you've got any further questions or comments or feedback about today's show, you can email me at info@yardofgreatness.com. That's info@yardofgreatness.com. If there's things that I've spoken about today that's resonated with you and you'd like to schedule a call with me, you can go to juneallen.net/call me. That's juneallen with an e.net/call me. Thank you so much for spending time with me today, and To round the show off today, I'm going to leave you with some really nice, compassionate, kind affirmations so you can take with you as you go about your day. Enjoy, and I'll see you next time. I am Blackalicious inside and out. I am a precious child of Ra. I cherish my body. I honor my feelings. I honor my needs. I love myself. I am healing from within. I am winning from within. I honor my humanity. I trust the process. I trust myself. I listen to my body. I let go of any shame. I am worthy of support. I am my solution. My ancestors are my entourage. I am not alone. I will love myself just as I am. I stand in my truth. I am love. I deserve kindness. I deserve tenderness. God, grant me the serenity to accept the people I cannot change, the courage to change the one I can, and the wisdom to know it's me. Ashe. Greetings family, it's June. Let's get honest for a minute. Are you secretly struggling with low self-esteem? Is your negative thinking keeping you small? Would you like more confidence to share your black girl magic? I have 7 days of revolutionary black self-love. It's a free audio email course to show you some simple ways to love on your blackness. Go to www.blackselflove7.juneallen.net. Build your blackalicious life. Be empowered.